I'd like to call this special meeting of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board to order. The invocation tonight will be by School Board member Cliff Lewis, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by School Board member Nathan Rust.
Stand, please. Gracious Father in heaven, thank you for allowing us to see a day that was not promised. We pray, O Heavenly Father, that your will will be done in this gathering, and that we will do the things that you've called us to do for your glory and the glory of our loved ones and not ourselves. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this meeting is called to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
District 3, President Powell Lewis. District 9, Vice President Martin.
Present.
District 1, Mr. Blue.
Here.
District 2, Mr. Lannis. District 4, Ms. Stewart.
Present.
District 5, Mr. Lewis.
Here.
District 6, Mr. Russ.
Present.
District 7, Mr. Gode.
Here.
District 8, Ms. Sule. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. President Powell Lewis is traveling today and will not be attending the meeting. Mr. Lannis and Ms. Sule are stuck in traffic and trying to get here. Mr. Lannis is, I believe, coming from Lafayette, so I don't know what the bridge is looking like by now, but he'll be here when he gets here. All right. Moving straight along, the first item on the agenda is item B1, Professional Services Contract, Kids Orchestra. Consideration of a request to approve the superintendent's recommendation of a proposal by Kids Orchestra regarding additional schools to participate in the after-school program as specified in the approved professional services contract, strategic alignment, student achievement, funding source, general fund. Superintendent Cole, is there a presentation on this issue?
No, sir, but Mr. Jaffron's going to come up and speak to it.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Joffriel.
And we have to be patient with Mr. Jaffron. He had surgery last week, so he came particularly for this meeting.
We appreciate that.
We appreciate your dedication and commitment.
Thank you, thank you. I always say this is not a job for me. This is a godsend. I love going to work every day. Good evening, board members. Just to recap from last board meeting, we took all into consideration, and Kids Orchestra is here if they would like to come up with me to explain any other questions. We looked at the schools which had the ability to have the actual program, and we took that and made sure that every school that was mentioned, we included those schools who were out from the previous recommendation and made sure that we included those and added a few more. The reason being is because with the money that we saw that we had, we can make sure that we have those schools readily available for those kids to participate, as well as make other schools hubs for surrounding schools that are nearby to participate in Kids Orchestra as well.
And our recommendation, Mr. Jeffrey?
Our recommendation is to go with that. We thought it was going to be a little over 500, but it's now 445,000 to make sure that we get the schools that have been a part of the organization for last year, along with, I want to say, 5 additional schools. I'm sorry, I just don't have it in front of me, and I want to give you accurate numbers.
So this would be a total of 445, counting the amount that we approved 2 weeks ago, 3
Yes,
weeks
sir.
ago? Okay.
Yes.
Good. All right. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board?
Point of information, if I could, does there need to be a motion on the items?
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Rust. Yes, is there a motion? Is there a motion on this item?
I move to approve the item.
And I second.
And moved by Mr. Rust, seconded by Ms. Stewart. Okay, now, thank you for that point of information, point of order. Now, are there any comments from members of the board or questions? Mr. Goday.
Yes, just a very quick one. Thank you, Mr. Jofrion, for giving us the listing of all the schools and the programs at schools. I think it's important for us to be able to take this in context. Unrelated to Kids Orchestra, though.
Okay.
There are a couple elementary schools that seem to have no music program whatsoever. So as we go into the budget process and staffing process for next year, I would like for us to have a consideration that we could have universal music programs at all of our elementary schools, because I think that's an important factor that should be there. Again, nothing to do with Kids Orchestra, just a request for next year's budget and staffing to consider that.
Most
Thank
definitely.
you.
Okay, any additional comments or questions from members of the board? Here, Mr. Rust.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Jofrion, Superintendent Cole, staff, for working with Kids Orchestra on this, coming up with something that they believe that they can do, that serves as many kids as we can possibly serve. I know it took some work to get here, but I'm very appreciative that we have taken some care in thinking through this, and that we can consider this item tonight. I'm very much in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you much, Mr. Rust. Any other comments from members of the board? Hearing none, are there any comments from members of the public on this Kids Orchestra item? All right, hearing none, we'll return to comments from the board. Any further questions, comments? All right, please make sure, board members, that you're logged into the special meeting, not the committee of the whole. And with that, Madam Secretary, please have the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item B2, RFP selection data aggregation. Consideration of a request to accept the recommendation of the RFP selection committee to select Lean Frog for data aggregation services and authorize the superintendent to execute a contract and related matters, strategic alignment, operational excellence, funding source, general fund. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Goday moves. Is there a second by Ms. Stewart? Okay. Is there any presentation or introduction of this item, Mr. Cole?
No, sir.
Okay. Then are there any comments or questions from members of the board? Mr. Rust.
Yeah, just want to thank the administration for working on this RFP. I think this is important for our system, but is also for our board and for the public to have a platform where we can have this information live and continue to live. My only lament is that it's taken us to September to get this in front of the board. I can't recall what month that we put up this RFP for consideration. I think it was maybe May. And I had hoped at this point that we would be doing the work by now, but
I'm pleased to see that we'll be able to move forward. I hope that we can get where we need to go with Lean Frog and have something that will be there for the board and in the school system in perpetuity. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rust. Any further comments from members of the board? All right, hearing none. Comments from members of the public? Any members of the public on this item? All right, we have 2 comments on the internet on this item, which I will read. I've got to figure out somebody when I'm presiding over the meeting. Anybody else want to volunteer to read the comments in the future? Clara White writes, this feels like board is hoping to grab data for a political agenda while claiming it's best for kids. Why are we doing this again? 88K? Please don't bother with Lean Frog if the political goal is to close and consolidate schools. It's 2024, we know better. Trust the actual experts instead of paying folks to tell us what we want to hear. According to a leading expert, Professor Eve Ewing, the argument that school closings can be good because students will end up in better schools is theoretically possible, but research suggests that this happens only for students who find themselves relocating to top-tier schools, which turns out to be a very small percentage, and those children on average have to go pretty far from home to get to the new school. The reality is that students who experience school closure end up at new schools that are not thriving academically, so they don't receive any boost or improvement in their education. Bottom line, closures and consolidations don't work. Marla Robbins writes, please hold this off. It just feels disrespectful after everything that has happened for the board to continue to nudge this way. The lack of transparency is abhorrent. There is no reason to spend $80K again with this firm for an agenda when we won't address the true causes of enrollment decline, such as poverty, decades of toxic staff at some sites, and, for example, the lack of accountability on the magnet office for starting up so-called magnet schools in multiple locations, but failing to sufficiently attract enough middle-class students to boost test scores. The overemphasis on the good magnets fails to address the programs left to rot as the predatory magnet leadership preys upon more sites for big ideas with little accountability and supervision. These consultants aren't going to really see causes of the issues. We do need to talk about struggling schools, but we cannot have those conversations without asking unpopular, tough questions and actually going instead the community. All right, any other comments from the public? All right, returning to board comments. Any further comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, Madam Secretary, please have the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. That is the last item on the agenda for the special meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
So move.
All right, then the special meeting is adjourned. Unless anybody particularly needs a break after that very brief special meeting, then we'll roll right into the cow. All right, we will now call the meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the School Board into order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
District 1, Mr. Blue.
Here.
District 2, Mr. Lannis. District 3, President Powell Lewis. District 4, Ms. Stewart.
Present.
District 5, Mr. Lewis.
Present.
District 6, Mr. Russ.
Present.
District 7, Mr. Gode.
Still here.
District 8, Ms. Sule. District 9, Vice President Martin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item, B1, is an information-only item, the fiscal transparency report. Unless any board member has a comment, I'll just remind the public that every month we publish a list of all the contracts that have been awarded, along with subcontracts that have been awarded by those contractors. And that's available for everybody, thanks to some great leadership on our board by Mr. Rust and everybody else. Moving on to item C.
Vice President Martin.
Oh, yes,
If I
Mr.
can,
Russ.
real quick. Just a question for council on the fiscal transparency report. Part of that policy, we required subcontractor visibility. Have we noticed all of our contracts that is required, and are we seeing compliance with that?
Yes, so, Mike's kind of loud. So the new template for our contract template that we offer all vendors has a space that requires them to list subcontractees and the percentage of the contract they're going to receive. And so that is given to them in the contract template. And so if that information provided to us, it's then provided on the report. And so as we get that, we'll update it, but that is on the new templates, and I can share that with the board so you can see it.
Okay, and then another question on that. When we put the policy in place, it backdated to a certain date.
Yes.
And we had discussed allowing some time for administration to populate those back contracts. Can you tell us where we are on that?
I can get you an update on that. I don't have it in front of me. We've been working, to be honest with you, Mr. Russ, to keep up with putting contracts in as they come in. As far as going back, I'm not certain. It was probably going to be a little bit of a challenge, and so let me get some information from our assistants, Ms. Armand and Ms. Barnes have been kind of handling that in the absence of my person. And so it's been a little bit of a challenge for us, but we'll get you an update. We'll get the board an update on where we are with going backwards.
Okay.
But it's going to take a little bit of work for us.
Yeah, I'd like to hear a drop dead date on
Yes, sir.
when we're going to have that done. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goday.
Yes, that's again from Ms. Chamberlain. Could you see about getting these transparency reports filed into the library section of board docs? So if you want to go and look up the contracts, you don't have to go figure out which meeting it was in and all these sorts of things. So if we could have that where we have a contract section in the library where we have budgets and things like that, just to make it easy for us and the public to be able to track these.
Sir.
Great idea. Thank you, Mr. Goday. Anyone else? Excellent. Okay, moving on. Item C1, Grant Student Enhancement Block. Consideration of a request for the approval of the Student Enhancement Block Grant 8G in the amount of $391,448 to provide 3 pre-K 4 classes at Audubon, Shenandoah, and Twin Oaks Elementary School. Strategic alignment, student achievement. Is there a motion? Mr. Ballou, is there a second by Ms. Stewart? All right. Ms. Stewart, you want me to just let you second every motion tonight? Okay. All right. Mr. Ballou, you're in the queue.
Thank you. Now, I just wanted to thank the superintendent and the staff. These FAQs on all these items are really helpful and paint a good picture as far as what each item is for and how we made the decisions. I think it's going to save a lot of time as far as the questions asked, because a lot of these are anticipated and answered in those. So I appreciate that being in all these items. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ballou. Mr. Goday.
I just wanted to second what Mr. Ballou said. I think this is a tremendous addition to our process, and hopefully it'll cut lots of time off of our meetings, because a lot of the questions that come up are answered ahead of time in here. And by having this, I would ask, though, that we get all backups, like the FAQs and stuff like that, really should be posted no later than Tuesday, so we have a chance to be able to read through these. But it's a great addition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I certainly agree with both of those comments. All right. That is.
Let me thank the staff.
Oh, please.
We sat and met, and this is an idea that came collectively from the group. So I want to thank all staff for working diligently to make this happen. And as we continue to work together, we'll continue to come up with processes that'll make board meetings less tense in terms of the questions that are asked at the meeting. Try to provide all the information ahead of time. I just to update you, our next generation is to create an opportunity for the public to ask questions online before the board meeting of items that are posted. And that way, if pertinent questions are asked online and we work to feel we need to respond to them, we'll respond to them as well and add them to the backup. So thanks, staff, so much for that.
Indeed, thank you very much to everybody. I know it's a great team effort, and really appreciate everybody's work. We're moving absolutely in the right direction, and we'll just keep getting better and better. Okay, so that does it for board comments on item C1. Are there any comments from members of the public on item C1? Seeing none, there are no online comments, so we will return to comments from the board. Any further comments from the board on item C1? All right, Madam Secretary, let's vote.
Please vote.
Everybody, please make sure you got out of the special meeting and into the cow. Which I did not do yet. Give me one second. All right, just give me 1 second, Ms. Harmon. All right. There we go.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item C2, Pupil Progression Plan. Consideration of a request for the approval of the 2024-2025 school year district pupil progression plan, strategic alignment, student achievement. Superintendent Cole, any presentation on this one?
Andre, you had a presentation? Come on down. Like the price is right.
That's the first thing that came to my mind.
You probably won't win a car tonight, however.
We do have a presentation, so at the pleasure of the board, if you all want to see it, we can present it. If not, it's totally up to the board.
Does any board members want it, would any board members like to hear this, or do we all understand it? You want it?
I understand that.
Mr. Godo, you want to hear a presentation? Yeah, if you could be brief, Ms. Okonski.
The verbal English major being brief, but we'll be brief. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be the face of the 2024-2025 Pupil Progression Plan. We'll quickly run through a few just updates and reminders. Each LEA, local education agency, is required to pass and review your plan annually. As the policy-making board, that is your obligation per Louisiana state law and policy. The state provides us with a template. It's a fill-in-the-blank template. It's a color-coded document. So when you see black, that's state font, state policy, state law. Where you see blue font, that is our local response. You'll notice in some sections, there is no prompt. There is no local response because state language is state language, and there's no local flexibility there. In areas where we're provided with local flexibility, that's where we provide a response. It's based on the student assessments, LEAP, DIBELS, things of that nature, as well as their grade, how they perform academically throughout the year. And it is aligned to Bessie Bulletin 1566, which is the birthplace of local pupil progression plans. So one question that you might have, and you might see on that FAQ, is why are we doing this in September? In the past, we've done this in July, or we've done it before school started. That is correct, but it was a busy legislative session, and many laws did not hit until after July 1. Our friends down at the State Department of Education and down at Bessie then had to turn those laws into policy. Bessie took up many of these items in June and in August, and now we're seeing a domino effect on the policy guidance documents. So I provided a timeline for you where you can see where we've received information along the way. We've also prepared for you a crosswalk to show how last year's template has changed into this year's template. The state has streamlined it, eliminating 3 previous sections. It doesn't mean that those areas go away. They streamline them into the other areas. We still had prompts in those areas. So I promise you, 3rd grade promotion did not go away. It's just now in the elementary section. So what is changing? There are 3 major buckets at the state level. The first is 3rd grade literacy. This is important to over 3,000 of our students and their families. This is an area where we have all received many questions and many concerns over the last couple of years. The state has new legislation here. And one of the things that I think that you'll be happy to hear is some of the issues and concerns that were presented to you guys as board members have been addressed in this new piece and this new policy. So as a team, the local committee is recommending that we adopt the state policy as our local policy. And in the local policy, it now, and there's a guidance document in the appendix, and then we put it in the FAQ as well. What the policy says is, and I'm gonna move to the next slide here so that you can see it. If you look at that far right column, only the well below students will be retained. And it gives a numerical value. So those students who score in that range, those are now the ones who consider retention for. But the state has also listed, if you look at this handout that's in the appendix, about 7 areas of what they're calling good cause. And so what we can do is those areas where if a child has dyslexia, or if a child has been retained previously, if the child is under an IEP for exceptional student services, if the child is an English language learner who has been in this country for under 2 years, there are some good cause exemptions, and there's a checklist there for staff to go through to see if they meet the criteria. We have to provide the documentation and the justification for it, but it gives more linear and detailed information than what we saw in the previous iteration. The next area where we saw a change was the 10-point grading scale. And so this was enacted by state law. We previously had the former uniform grading scale. And so now what you'll see in various places throughout the document, we've adjusted the previous grading scale to the 10-point, and we've made those correlations along the way. There have been no other recommended changes in this area. The last piece that I'll point out to you that is a shift in state language and in state policy is that previously students who did not perform at basic or above on LEAP assessments beginning in 4th grade were required to have an IAIP, Individual Academic Improvement Plan. A student could, in theory, have had 4. One for each of the major content areas. They could have had a 5th plan for reading based on their DIBEL score. So it was 5 open plans. So one of the things that our friends at the state did over the summer, which we're very appreciative of, is they've consolidated all of those and combined them into one plan that is easier for, especially in elementary school, to manage and to track. And so what our document does is it shifts the former IAIPs to this new individual academic support plan and provides the timeline from which they must be completed. The template for the new plan and the guidance document from the state is housed in the appendix of our pupil progression plan. So besides state changes, is there anything on the local area that's changing? Here are 3 major areas that I need to put on your radar. And again, the document that we provided to you is color-coded, so you can see the red changes, and I provided you with like an index of the page numbers of where the changes occur if you want to dig deep into any of them. The first major area is middle school. What we determined over the last year is that there was a loophole in our middle school retention policy. Let's think about elementary. In order to be promoted in K-5, you have to pass both reading and math, okay? That is in our local policy. If we go to the high school level, you have to pass an EOC to graduate, and you need 4 maths and 4 Englishes to graduate. What we were finding was, in our local policy, a student could mathematically, there was a loophole, get promoted from 8th grade to 9th, let's just say on the high school campus, without having passed 8th grade math or reading. There was a loophole. We've closed that loophole. And so it makes it in alignment with the elementary promotion and the secondary promotion standards. That is, there's an asterisk there, just like it is in the elementary, saying that math and reading must be addressed. Now, it doesn't mean that a student can still go to summer programming. They can go to summer remediation, they can go to summer credit recovery, and then the SBLC team can come back, review the preponderance of data, review the LEAP scores that we get back before school starts, and then if the evidence is there, make a promotion decision. So that is one change at the local level that the committee recommended. The next change that affects middle school that the committee is recommending is to expand the opportunities for students at the middle school level for high school coursework. Previously, we kind of had a door closed where you could not take English 1 on the middle school campus. What the committee is recommending is that we open that door. Doesn't mean that overnight every middle school is going to be able to offer English 1. You have to have the course request and you have to have a secondary certified teacher on the campus to do so. But what this does mean, if you approve it and agree with the committee, then it doesn't prohibit a school from doing it. The other thing that we added to that course list was we took out Spanish 1, Spanish 2, French 1, French 2, and put foreign language 1 and 2, so it aligns to all TOPS eligible foreign language courses. At the high school level, the state is making a shift. In 2 years, you will see the U.S. History EOC go away. It will be replaced with civics. So incoming freshmen fall under that criteria. So we put in the language. We actually copied verbatim the Louisiana Department of Education slides. They presented to high school administrators and accountability directors. And we put in the language to prepare our students and their parents for that shift in the next 2 years. The last piece is a high school student is able to take an exam for proficiency. If I come from another state with a similar course that maybe doesn't match ours perfectly, or I come from homeschool, I can sit for a proficiency exam. That's in Bulletin 741. That's allowable by state policy. But it says that each local agency has to set your threshold for passing. Our threshold was a 75, which was the lowest C. The committee just recommended to keep it at the lowest C, but to shift the number to align to the new grading scale. The other changes that you're going to see in the document deal with special populations of students. Your EL students, your special education students, and then dyslexia. Those changes were all consistent with changes in Bulletin 111, state policy, as well as Act 266 for dyslexia. So again, you have a memo detailing the purpose of the pupil progression plan in front of you. There's an executive summary that provides a chart for the color-coded changes, and then the FAQ document. And then I'll pause there to see if there are any questions. Hope that was brief.
Thank you very much, Ms. Okonski. I have one question. There's a lot in there, obviously, right?
Yes.
It's fair to say generally that we're increasing the standard for passing from one grade to the next, correct?
At the middle school level,
At the middle,
yes.
yeah. And so therefore, we can anticipate that in this first year, in particular, maybe we might have a higher need for summer school and the course recovery things and what credit recovery things?
Yes and no, because what we found was there weren't many students that were falling into this category, but there were some. And then what happened was when they got to, like, let's say the 9th grade campus, they weren't necessarily ready for Algebra 1. Right. Because they hadn't passed 8th grade math. Right. So I think we saw it more so, Mr. Martin, to answer your question, at the 8th grade level, but I don't want anyone to think it was a large number. It was a handful that we saw. But to your point, mathematically, it could occur.
Well, I want, if there's reason to expect that we might have more students not meet the criteria for promotion to the next grade.
Right.
Then, and therefore, there's a corresponding increased need for remedial work over the summer, credit recovery and so forth. I want to make sure that we're planning now to make sure that those resources are available during the summer.
Yes,
and
sir.
if we need to tweak the budget or consider anything else, please, don't wait till May to bring that to us.
Absolutely. We'll be tagging Ms. Lopez early and often.
Okay, thank you. And if you could, kind of give us an update on that periodically.
We can do that.
Thank
at the end
you.
of grading periods.
Okay. Mr. Ballou.
Thank you. Does our progression plan apply to our charter schools?
Great question. So, and council can chime in and help me or correct me if I'm wrong, but each charter school is allowed to have autonomy in the development of their own. And so what our charter office typically does once you guys pass ours is reach out to them and they will tell them, I opt to follow the district's, or here's the submission of my own.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goday.
That got my question.
All right. Ms. Stewart.
Yes. Hi. I wanted to know what percentage is that handful of students that we're referencing that
We would have to run it into detail. When we had the middle school principals in the room, it was not often and frequent. What brought it to our attention was that when they were looking over scheduling kids for 9th grade, and so the 3 middle school principals that we had in the room all said it was a handful, and that's why it had never really been elevated to this level before, because they kind of dealt with it at the school level. But we could run the data for you if you like.
It would be interesting. I would like to know the numbers or the data that comes from the handful, and particularly what schools that may be having
You
that
can run
issue.
a report by math and ELA.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Is that all, Ms. Stewart? All right. But kind of following up on that question, because we've heard plenty of testimony in the past about the fact that we have a fairly substantial percentage of our students who are not reading at grade level.
Sure.
And so, that to me doesn't quite say the same as it's a handful of students that we're dealing with here.
The handful was at the middle school level who were promoted and didn't pass ELA and math.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
To your point, with the literacy standard, we saw about 48% be assigned to summer remediation this summer.
Okay. And we think that particular number might increase, but only by a tiny bit, not a
I think
lot.
actually you might see that number go down.
Really?
Because you've got these just cause pieces now, where you can look at, for instance, the former policy guidance did not have a provision for English language learners. So now you do. You also have Previous retention is now in consideration where it wasn't before, and it's now just the well below level. In addition to that, what I should have led with is we've seen each year our end of the year numbers increase by proficiency levels. So each year we've seen incremental growth in our students and end of the year reading levels. So A, we hope to see that continued growth, or we expect to. And then B, I think these new just cause pieces will help to offset some of that.
Okay. Particularly, I appreciate the changes the state made for those just cause, because I certainly had my share last year of emails from constituents saying, hey, my kid has this, that, or the other thing, which there will always have. And they've got accommodations and things like that, but it wasn't an accommodation when it came to the promotion criteria.
Correct,
So
correct.
that's a big fix in my view.
Correct.
All right. Any other comments from members of the board? All right. Comments from members of the public? There are absolutely no cards up here. Oh, no, there's one card up here. All right. Of course. Thank you. Ms. Matthews.
To your point, Vice President Martin, reading level does not determine pass or fail at the middle school level. If I receive a child that reads on the 3rd grade level at the beginning of the year, I'm going to come down to the 3rd grade level and reach that child and bring them up. I am going to differentiate my instruction for that child. At the same time, in the same classroom, I may have a child that reads on a 12th grade level, and I'm going to give them instruction at the 12th grade level, so that every child is getting instruction where they are. Their grades will be based on where they are. And so their grade won't be based on what reading level they read on, but they will be growing where they are, if that makes sense. So their grades will be, where they are at the end of the year. So the reading level that they're supposed to be on, that is more of an elementary thing. So that kind of goes away once we get into the middle school level. As long as they are working and they are growing, then they're in good shape in the middle school range.
Any other comments from members of the public? All right, we will return to comments from the board. Any comments from the board? All right, Madam Secretary? Oh, Mr.
We need a motion.
Oh, thank you very much. Man, I forget that tonight. All right, is there a motion on this item? Ms. Stewart's the mover tonight. Is there a second? And Mr. Goday. All right. All right, with that, let's vote.
Please vote. Sorry, please vote. The motion carries.
Excellent, thank you. All right, moving on to item C3, professional services contract Nearpod. Consideration of a request for the approval of a professional services contract between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and Nearpod LLC in the amount of $286,590 to provide K-12 supplemental curriculum platform and associated educational tools and resources, strategic alignment, student achievement, funding source, general fund. Is there a motion? We'll lead right off with, is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Blue, second by Mr. Rust. All right. Any members of the board wishing to speak on this item? All right, hearing none. Any members of the public wishing to comment on item C3, Nearpod? All right, seeing none, we'll return to comments from the board. Any comments, questions from the board? All right, Madam Secretary, let's vote.
Please vote.
I lost it. It's coming back.
You want us to do a roll call?
Let's do a roll call vote, please.
District 1, Mr. Blue.
Yes.
District 2, sorry. District 4, Ms. Stewart.
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
District 6, Mr. Russ.
Yay.
District 7, Mr. Gode.
Yes.
District 8, Ms. Sule.
Yes.
District 9, Vice President Martin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving right along to item C4, Agreement, EverDriven. Consideration of a request for the approval of an agreement between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and EverDriven to provide for the provision of alternative transportation solutions, strategic alignment, operational excellence, funding source, general fund. Is there a motion? Moved by Mr. Gode. Is there a second? By Ms. Stewart. All right. Any comments from members of the board? All right. Comments from members of the public? All right, seeing none, and there are no internet comments on any item on the committee of the whole agenda tonight. Then we will turn to comments from the board. All right, seeing none. Madam Secretary, let's vote. Mr. Coach, you logged in again?
It came back. It went away, but I've got it.
You got it? Okay. All right.
Please vote. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on, item C5, RFP selection, budget consulting services. Consideration of a request to accept the recommendation of the RFQ selection committee to select Swanson Consulting as the budget consulting service and authorize the superintendent to execute a contract and related matters. Is there a motion? Moved by Mr. Russ, second by Ms. Stewart. All right. Any comments from members of the board on this item? All right. Comments from the public? All right. Seeing none, return to comments from the board. Mr. Rust.
I didn't get in the queue, but I'll just share that I will be incredibly excited to pass this item if we choose to do so. We have all voiced how important it is for us to improve our budget process and how we go about making our budgets, and I hope that that this provider could help us do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Gode.
Yeah, I want to second Mr. Russ's comments, and also two items for me. One is we need to get working in this very quickly so it can impact next year's budget. But then secondly, it is more of a longer term process too, so that we really need to come up with a multi-year budget process and things like that to not only help us be better financial stewards, but also to help the partners that we have in the community where they're not living year to year and all this sort of thing as we go through this. So we need quick results, but then we also need long-term results. So I'm very happy to see us moving with this. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you. Yes, I fully agree that we need to move quickly. And in fact, as we'll all recall, included in our new superintendent's contract is a performance goal to make significant strides in budget improvement, budget process improvement this year. So very excited about that. All right. Any further comments? Madam Secretary, let's vote that one.
Please vote. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item C6, HVAC mechanical services. Consideration of a request for the approval to advertise, review, and approve HVAC mechanical services contracts for district services. Strategic alignment, exemplary customer service, funding source, proposition number 1. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Rust. All right. Any comments from members of the board? Mr. Gode.
Yeah, I guess a couple of comments on this. One is that, you know, we've had HVAC contracts with, I think, zero escalation or zero cost increases, and HVAC costs have gone up dramatically. So be prepared when this comes. And then secondly, I think in our budget process, we have not been looking at the ongoing cost of maintenance for lots of things through this. You know, we have the Prop 1 where we had the designated projects, and there's some cost things in there, but, you know, we replaced a lot of roofs with the original Prop 1 numbers, and we replaced a lot of air conditioning with the original Prop 1, and those things are starting to be 20 years old now with a life expectancy of 20 years. And so as we go through this facility study and get the data pulled in by Lean Frog, I think we need to anticipate that we're going to have some ongoing maintenance costs that we need to start addressing. And we really need to be earmarking a % of our budget either through Prop 1 or some kind of way for ongoing maintenance, because I think we have been ignoring that as we go through this. And quite honestly, we're probably at the point now where we don't really need to build all that many schools after we finish this round of Prop 1 numbers, but we really need to be maintaining the things that we have. So it's just a shift in focus that we need to be prepared for, and a shift in cost that we need to be prepared for. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Goday. Mr. Lewis.
My question is basically for Mr. Shamblin. Is this covered, let me put it like this, does our fair share program take into account this particular HVAC contract?
From the fair share perspective, yes. Any contracts we issue, we try to involve minority and women-owned businesses to the extent we can in terms of the process. To answer your question, but yes, that's across the board. The board has a policy in place that we consider all contracts with that policy in light.
Okay, just wanted to put that in the atmosphere.
Thank you, Coach. I just wanted to quickly follow up on what Mr. Goday said, because this is within the scope of a lot of what I do in my day job. And you know, it is vitally important that as part of our long-term budget reform process that we really start looking at and taking into account how costs will inevitably increase as certain buildings get older, and the need to do capital renewals of existing buildings, right, by replacing, you know, an HVAC system. There's this term deferred maintenance that's used a lot, and it sounds like people have been slothful and not paying to do the proper for preventive maintenance. That is one form of deferred maintenance, but another form of deferred maintenance is simply that things get old and they have to be replaced rather than repaired at a certain point. And when you don't do that on a timely basis, then you have deferred maintenance, because you've got what should be a 20-year lifespan HVAC equipment, and you run it for 40 years, you're going to be paying a lot more to maintain that, and it's often cheaper to go ahead and bite the bullet and build something new, or replace the HVAC system rather than continuing to try to get a few more years out of it. And we need to be definitely thinking on a much more longer term scope than we have historically. So any further comments from the board? All right, then we will return to comments from the public. Ms. Matthews.
Hold on to y'all seat, folks, because I'm about to agree with Goday. This doesn't happen very often. All right. Y'all talking about things that are as old as buildings? You know, like I like to talk about how Sherwood was built during the Cold War. Guess how old our AC is? It's as old as the Cold War. Our AC is from 1967, people. Okay, La Bel Air, Sherwood, and Glen Oaks Parks. All of their AC units are as old as those buildings are. They are the same ACs from when those buildings were built. And guess what? They don't work. They are putting so much stress on the entire electrical system of the schools that when they turn off for the weekend, there's a huge problem Monday morning. A very big problem Monday morning. With the electrical system, it's tripping the electrical system. We have problems. So 100% of what he said, gosh, this just doesn't happen often, as to what is going to happen when we start looking at actually doing what should have been done many, many years ago and replacing those HVAC systems. But please do it, because we're all very hot. Very, very hot. Because guess who the teachers call when they're hot during the day? It's me. And then I bug Patrick, and I love Patrick. I like that one too, sometimes. Not during the summer, but sometimes. But Patrick Ficklin, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. All right, turning back to any further comments from the public. All right, turning back to comments from the board. I will enter the queue real quick just to suggest Superintendent Cole, Mr. Morales, you know, we're spending a lot of effort to gather data on facilities condition right now. The health of the HVAC system is a very important component of that. And so I would, as you put together the RFP, I would encourage you to look to see if there's a way we can build in a little piece of that to have our contractor provide us some data, some comprehensive school-by-school data on the age and general condition of the HVAC consistent, you know, because it'll be a lot cheaper for them to do it while they're getting on board than it would be for us to hire that separately. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Seeing no more comments from the board, Madam Secretary, let's vote on this item.
Please vote.
While we're voting, I really like the term capital renewal as opposed to deferred maintenance. We're going to have to remember that.
I've been trying professionally to get everybody's mindset to shift. Because deferred maintenance sounds like somebody who really ignored things.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item C7, Louisiana Department of Education differentiated stipend, consideration of a request for the approval of the distribution of the LDOE differentiated stipends for the 2024-2025 fiscal year, strategic alignment, operational excellence. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Goday. Is there a second by Ms. Sule getting in on the action? All right. Are there any comments, questions from members of the board? All right. Seeing none. Ms. Matthews, you had a card in for this? All right, we're moving really quick tonight, Ms. Matthews.
Okay, and I'm behind. Okay. Okay, so they have it on here for 11/27 as the stipend check. The teachers really want, and support staff, really want it in October. 11/27 is after the Thanksgiving holiday. They're begging for October. So if you could please, pretty please, with sugar on top and cherries and whatever delicacy that you like on top of your sugary treats, make it for October. That would be absolutely 100% amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Any more comments from members of the public? All right, Ms. Sule.
Why did we pick the November date?
Ms. Lopez? I'm guessing you're the person to answer this question, Ms. Lopez. If not, let me know.
So there are two stipends being provided by the state this year. The first one is the differentiated stipend, which is going to be the smaller stipend. It's going to provide the amount for the highly effective teachers based upon their compass reviews. The second stipend is going to be the LDOE stipend. That's going to be $2,000 for your certificated and $1,000 for your non-certificate and support personnel. I still have not received the guidance from LDOE. The goal right now is September 10th, as I was last emailed. That would give me the ability to put it on the October board meeting, which means you can't vote on it until mid-October. So what I was going to do was put it on the November workshop check and put all of the stipends in one check for all the teachers in one fell swoop, and that way there is one payment for everybody, and that's all of it. So it's nice and clean. That was my goal, was nice and clean.
And they're getting the check before Christmas that way.
That too. The LDOE is requiring the second stipend must be spent by December 31st. That was my other reasoning. I would give it to them for Thanksgiving and Christmas shopping. And so 11/27 is the workshop date. It would make it really easy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Ms. Sule, do you have any further questions or comments? All right. Mr. Goday.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if this is for Ms. Lopez or not, but she almost sat down. This
Walk faster next time.
This requires the compass ratings for the qualification for the stipend, is that correct? And
Only for the differentiated one, the one you're voting on now.
For the differentiated one?
Yes, this is the compass
And is that
review.
the compass ratings from last year?
23-24, yes,
Okay.
sir.
I just wanted to make sure that that
Yes,
was
sir.
understood. Thank you.
All right. Any further comments from members of the board? Superintendent Cole?
4C9, that's all.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'll do that after we get this vote. You mean C8? The Southern? Yeah, but we'll get this vote done and I'll pull that. Okay, all right, any further comments from the board? All right, seeing none, Madam Secretary, let's vote.
Please vote. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. As I understand it, Mr. Shamlin, Superintendent Cole, we are pulling item C8, Cooperative Endeavor Agreement with Southern University.
That's correct.
Okay, that is withdrawn. Moving on to item C9, Policy. Consideration of a request to adopt the following new policies. A, EMB Miscellaneous Instructional Policies, Controversial Issues, and sub B, JGCF, Behavioral Health Support for Students. Is there a motion? Mr. Lewis, is there a second? Mr. Goday. All right. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay. Hearing none. Any comments from members of the public? All right. Ms. Matthews?
Mr. Shamlin, I thought we already have a policy on this on record.
On which, there are two new policies.
The name and the pronoun, isn't there already one on record? Wasn't the state behind us on this?
Well, actually, the board has voted to enact this in the student handbook, which was done back in July.
Correct.
And so this is placing it into the CAP system, which is also the board's policy system. And that's to put employees on notice as to the expectation.
Correct, but do we not already have it in CAPS?
I'm not aware of it being in CAPS. I can check. This is a new law, so it's arising from new legislation.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Be sure and turn in that card when you finish scribbling it down, Ms. Matthews. All right. Seeing no further comments from members of the public, we'll turn to comments from the board. Any comments from the board? All right. Madam Secretary, let's vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Turning now to the last voting item on the agenda tonight. Last voting item on the agenda is item C10, Amended Policies. Consideration of a request to adopt the following amended policies. Sub A, EB, Buildings and Grounds Management. Sub B, Gamma, GAMA, Employee Smoking, Tobacco, and Marijuana Use. Sub C, JCDAA, Student Smoking, Tobacco, and Marijuana Use. Sub D, IDCH, Home Study Program. Sub E, IDE, Co-Curricular Activities and Extracurricular Activities. Sub F, IDFA, Interscholastic Athletics. Sub G, IDBA, Sex Education. Sub H, JBE, Truancy. Sub I, JCDAE, Electronic Communications, Telecommunications Devices. Sub J, JD, Discipline. Sub K, JDD, Suspension. Sub L, JDE, Expulsion. And sub M, JGCE, Child Abuse. Is there a motion? Mr. Rust and Ms. Soule. All right. Any comments or questions from members of the board? All right. Any comments from members of the public? Ms. Matthews, you commenting on this item?
I know we have put all of this in the Student Rights and Responsibilities Handbook, and we are pulling it in to match the law. But we have had a couple of questions from the handbook from employees. And so just for clarification on the record. So marijuana use, does that include CBD use, since it's technically a different thing? So like if it's from a doctor's prescribed use of CBD.
Well,
So
if
that
it-
is a question that we have received.
Yeah, well, if it's a prescription, that's an exception, that's an exclusion. And I'm assuming that's what you're referring to.
Well, it's an over-the-counter.
Yes.
So it's not, it doesn't have like a prescription thing.
Yeah,
So
the
but that is
policy
a
ref-
question received.
Yeah, the law refers to marijuana use, and the policy references a law, so that would be an exclusion.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further comments from the public? All right, then we'll return to comments and questions from the board. Anybody? All right, hearing none, Madam Secretary, let's vote.
Please vote. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. I'd like to note for the record that it's before 6 o'clock and we have completed a special board meeting and all of the voting items on the committee of the whole. We now have one last item, and I thank all of my colleagues and the staff. As we noted earlier, Superintendent Cole, the addition of those frequently asked questions, I think, is very much responsible for us being able to get through this agenda so orderly this evening, and we greatly appreciate it. The last item is a presentation, no voting taking place, item D1, property and liability insurance presentation. So with that, Superintendent Cole or whoever's giving a presentation.
I think we have a guest who's going to come up and do the presentation this evening. He's online.
Okay. Then if the IT staff can pull him up, please.
And while we're doing that, I want to make mention to those of who are at home and here, there's going to be a Women and Minority-Owned Business Information and Engagement session hosted by Board Member Shoshone Stewart in partnership with East Baton Parish School System Fair Share Program to be held on Tuesday, October 15th at 9 a.m., 3000 North Sherwood Drive, Building C, Room 304. So for those of you who are interested, please come out and participate and learn all you can about the Fair Share Program.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. My name is Bob Rhyme, and I'm an insurance consultant for schools. We are an independent consulting firm, which means you're our boss. You're the one who pays us. We don't make any money from insurance companies or insurance agents, or do they contribute to any part of our revenue. You pay all the bills. First of all, I cannot see the display. Is it up? No, okay. Next. These insurance relativities are what guide us in all of our engagements. If a loss is large enough, an insurance company will do everything possible to delay or avoid payment. Claim adjusters work for the insurance companies, not for you. They aren't your buddies. All ties, near ties, or even questions go to the benefit of the insurance company. Insurance companies and agents make money on what they sell. The more they sell, the more they make. If they don't have available the coverages you need, you may never know you need that insurance until you have a loss. Now, if you have any questions during this presentation, please don't hesitate to interrupt. I'll be glad to stop at any point. So our process with schools is that we prepare a calendar with the responsibilities of both the school and our firm. We qualify potential bidders using questionnaires that ask really hard questions to determine their knowledge of school insurance and their knowledge of property insurance, particularly along the coast or the near inland schools. We develop a spreadsheet questionnaire for a side-by-side comparison of bids. We completely understand the coverages and ask that the district, the school, understand those coverages and deductibles also. Whatever client, whatever you questions and options have, we incorporate those in the RFP or any other options, because we ask for them from the insurance companies and proposers also. If they have another idea, are they thinking outside the box? We also compare pricing with other schools, and with you, make the best business decision in behalf of the school. The options that we look at in evaluating these proposals is policy limits. What are the policy deductibles? What is the percentage? What is the minimum? What is the maximum? How do these deductibles apply to various losses? What are the coverages involved? And what are the perils involved? All risk means everything that can happen, all perils. We want to exclude sometimes in our evaluation all wind and hail. Other times, name storm only. And with flood, we want to know what the cost is and what the coverage is for unnamed flood and named flood. Now then we move to the cost coverage options. Could we raise deductibles and save money? Can we become a co-insurer? That means actually participate in one of the levels of insurance, just like we were an insurance company. Should we establish a self-insurance fund? And if we do, we need to coordinate that so that we do not interrupt our FEMA opportunities. Roof inspections, replacements, and maintenance are exceptionally important in today's marketing, as are hail guards on outdoor HVAC equipment. What are the school's freeze prevention procedures? Have appraisals been done to be sure that the values are adequate? And what about non-insured buildings? If it's vacant or not to be repaired or replaced? Now, this is a little matrix that we have developed that outlines the assessment of risk and can you show the whole list? There you go. So the first thing in the risk management process is, can we avoid a risk? Now, in this particular case, what I've done is I've pulled out a 2004 bus, and that set will sell for about $30,000. We can avoid a risk by selling the bus. We can perhaps reduce the risk by changing the routes, or maybe the addition of monitors, or the qualification of drivers. Or we can outsource the risk by hiring somebody like Durham as a contractor. We then assume the risk. If all of those don't work, we then move to assuming the risk, which means we can totally self-insure it. Or we can self-insure it partially by taking a large deductible, or as the school district does in this case, purchasing a large deductible amount on school buses that are involved in a named storm. If we don't want to assume the risk, then we transfer it. Perhaps we rent it, maybe we outsource it, maybe we rent it, the bill of the bus. The last item on our list is insurance. So what we're saying is we want to look at every option, every opportunity before we decide to insure. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Goday.
Yes, thank you. I feel the need to jump in since I've been kind of the catalyst to get this, and thank you, Mr. Rim, for giving us this. Could you just briefly tell us the scope of your business and how many schools and school districts and things that you work with?
Okay, excuse me. Other than Houston and Dallas, 80% of the 10 largest schools are clients of ours. In 2024 so far, we've done 8 schools for property only, whose total values exceed $16 billion, and the premiums exceed $45 million. Now, with those schools, except for one, the decrease in rate was 1 to 20%. The school that did not decrease their rate doubled their storm limit and their flood limit.
And when you say schools, you mean school districts?
Yes.
Okay. And so, you know, part of the impetus to get this is that we have typically, we had an RFP a couple of years ago where we went out, but we've basically been with the same insurance companies for a significant amount of time, and they've done a very good job. No argument there, but none of us are insurance experts. And, you know, there's just, I just felt a need that we need to take an independent look at this because our insurance bill is well over $4 million, and it's one of the larger contracts that we have with an outside party. Yeah, I think it's probably only second to the contract that we have for facilities with HES. And it hasn't gotten the same level of scrutiny that we've given all of these other contracts. So the concept here was that we have Mr. Rim come in and look at what we're doing and look at where we are and then work with us to develop an RFP so that we can go out, because in the past we've sort of done an RFP for all of our insurance. We really need to break that up. We need to do an RFP for our insurance coverage, where we might have 2 or 3 different companies, one company providing this, one company providing this, another company providing this, or be able to aggregate them together and get benefits from aggregation. I don't know enough about this. I'm not an insurance expert, but we just felt the need, or I felt the need with others, to have an outside view coming in and giving us a better format so that we can go and judge what we're getting. This is not to say that we don't have the best deal today that we could get. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I just don't know. And so that was the impetus behind this, and I thank Mr. Rim for working on this. And the goal would be for us to come up, working with Mr. Rim, to come up with an RFP process so that we could go through and get a much better detailed view so that we really know where we are. So that was the purpose behind this, and I thank you for your work in pulling this together. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Rim. Mr. Goday, I appreciate your taking the time and lending your expertise to take a look at that. I agree with you as a general principle, not necessarily speaking to this contract. We have not always done a thorough job for our larger contracts of thinking about what's the pace at which we issue RFPs, right? We tend to go, oh, well, we can renew this and we can renew this. And sometimes that's appropriate, but we need to always be making a conscious decision about that. And some of these, in my view, we need to kind of adopt a schedule. We're going to bid this out every 3 years, every 5 years, whatever, and kind of stick to that. So what I'd suggest that we do, Ms. Goday, I'll talk to President Powell Lewis, and maybe we need to, I think it's clear, because you're right, this is a very large contract, and it's very important, right, to make sure that we have the right coverages. So I think maybe we can suggest to President Powell Lewis, maybe we need a little, an ad hoc committee of the board to help take a look at this, or maybe just you and 1 or 2 other board members informally working with the superintendent and procurement staff and risk staff to really do make sure that as we make decisions about this, that we're fully informed based on the analysis that Mr. Reams has done, feedback that we get from our current vendor, and other sources of information and feedback to make sure we're really contemplating all the aspects of this. All right. Any other comments from members of the board? All right. Let's see, then we have, what's next, the announcement of meetings? Do I do that? Yes. Okay. Give me one. I closed my book too early, so.
Could I have a quick point of personal privilege?
Please, Mr. Russ.
I just want to wish Board Member Sule a happy anniversary of her 21st birthday. That was yesterday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
We will reward the public and ourselves by not singing tonight. All right, announcement of meetings. Regular meeting to be held on September 19th, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the Central Office Boardroom. Committee of the Whole to be held on October 3rd, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the Central Office Boardroom. Oversight Committee meeting to be held on October 7th, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the Central Office. Some or all board members may attend. With that, a motion is in order, Mr. Gode? We are adjourned.
Good job.